something about the announcement felt heavier than the usual celebrity headlines. For so many who had watched them share a sofa, trade glances, and finish each other's sentences year after year, the news that Eamonn Holmes and Ruth Langsford's marriage was over after 14 years landed with a quiet kind of shock. It wasn't just two well-known presenters parting ways. It was the end of a television partnership that had felt, to many viewers, like watching a real marriage unfold in real time. You could almost sense the collective pause across living rooms when the statement confirmed what had once seemed unthinkable. Ruth Langsford and Eamonn Holmes, the couple who had become fixtures of daytime television, were divorcing. They had been together far longer than the marriage itself, building a life and a career in public view. Their on-screen chemistry had always carried a particular warmth. The way they looked at each other during lighter moments, the easy banter that never felt forced, the sense that they were genuinely comfortable in each other's company. Many viewers had grown attached to that dynamic. It felt familiar, almost domestic, in the best possible way. What made the moment land so hard for audiences was how long that image had been part of the morning routine. For years they had sat side by side, navigating everything from serious interviews to playful segments, and in the process they had become more than presenters. They had become a kind of television couple that people felt they knew. When the news broke that their marriage was ending, some watching found themselves reflecting on the difference between the version of a relationship we see on camera and the private one that exists once the lights go down. There was no dramatic on-air confrontation, no public falling out captured live. Just a measured confirmation that the marriage was over and that they were in the process of divorcing. The restraint itself seemed to underline the weight of it. Many who had followed their work for years spoke online of a strange sense of loss. Not the loss of a personal relationship, of course, but the loss of a shared television presence that had felt steady. Viewers remembered the small details, the way Ruth's expression would soften when Eamonn made a dry remark, or how he would glance across during a more emotional interview as if checking she was okay. Those tiny moments of connection had accumulated over time into something audiences trusted. When the split was confirmed, it almost seemed as though a chapter of daytime television itself had closed. There is something uniquely revealing about watching two people work together for so long. The chemistry either holds or it doesn't. In their case, for a long stretch of years, it held. That is part of why the announcement carried emotional force. It wasn't simply that two celebrities had separated. It was that a partnership many had watched with affection had reached its end. Some audiences began wondering whether the pressures of public life, of shared work and shared schedules, had slowly pulled them in different directions. Others simply felt a quiet sadness for two people who had once seemed so intertwined both on and off screen. What lingered for many was the knowledge that these were real lives, not just television characters. Behind the polished studio appearances sat a marriage that had lasted 14 years and a relationship that stretched back much further. The decision to confirm the end of it publicly, even in the most measured terms, invited a wave of reflection. Viewers found themselves thinking about the gap between the warm, familiar faces they had welcomed into their mornings and the private realities those faces carried. There was respect in the way the news was received by large parts of the audience. Speculation existed, as it always does, yet many responses carried a note of genuine empathy rather than prurient interest. Television has a way of making certain partnerships feel permanent. We see the same two people week after week, year after year, and we begin to weave them into the fabric of our own routines. When that partnership ends, the absence registers. In the days that followed the announcement, conversations returned again and again to the same observations. How natural they had always looked together, how their humor had complemented each other, how rare it is to watch two presenters who genuinely seem to enjoy each other's company. Those memories did not disappear with the statement. If anything, they sharpened the sense of change. Perhaps what stayed with so many was not the formal wording of the confirmation, but the quiet recognition that even the most familiar television relationships can reach a point of no return. The sofa they had shared for so long would never feel quite the same. The banter that once seemed effortless now belonged to a different chapter. And for the audiences who had watched them grow into that partnership, the news carried a particular kind of emotional weight. It reminded people that the faces we invite into our homes every morning are living their own complicated stories, and that those stories do not always continue in the way we, or they, once imagined. In the end, the lasting impression may not have been the fact of the split itself, but the way it made viewers look back on years of shared screen time with a new awareness. What once felt permanent had proved otherwise. And perhaps that is why moments like this continue to resonate long after the cameras stop rolling. They leave us thinking not only about the presenters we thought we knew, but about the fragile nature of the connections we watch unfold and the quiet human truths that exist just beyond the edge of the frame.